Morning. I'm Oskar Kalmaru. I'm one of the co-founders of Memoto. It's really great to be here. Creative mornings. It's fantastic. And creative. I don't consider myself very creative, but I think working with a startup is kind of creative in itself. And I think I'm gonna try and show here today why that can be and how we've done it at Memoto so far. Just some short about what we do at Memoto. We do this little small wearable life logging camera. I can send it around. You can just give it back in one piece, please, because it's one of the 3 prototypes we have right now. There's nothing in it. It's not working, but it's really easy to break. I broke one of the 3, so this is 2 left. And it's a camera that you wear as a clip, and it takes photos automatically. And when you charge the batteries of the camera, you upload the cameras to the cloud, and you can access them from our smartphone apps. So it's a way of tracking your whole life with images. And well, I can go on here. That's our brand name. This tracking of your life is sometimes called life logging. And this guy is called Steve Mann, and he's like the father of life logging. This is from, I think, early 80s, when he was a student at MIT, walking around with all these crazy cameras and gadgets that he had made himself and tried to capture his life and see what that would do to himself and his surroundings. So he walked around at campus at MIT with all this, like a robot. And he constructed like a keyboard that he wore on his hands, and he wrote his thesis while walking around at campus. So it's really pioneer. He's now a professor at Toronto University, and is still very active in the life logging field. Actually, he wore a kind of life logging camera this summer, I think. And he not only wear it, he has it stuck in his head, like really, planted in it. You can't take it away. And he entered the McDonald's restaurant in Paris with this, and they assaulted him, like, you can't take photographs here. And he was like, well, what can I do? It's part of my brain. Like, well, take it off. And so, ripping it and injuring him. And he got it on pictures and on film. So. I don't know the end of that story really, but I think it can't be good for the one assaulting him. So it's been a research project for 25 years, way before Memoto was around, and that was one of the reasons that we thought that this could be something that you can make a consumer product of. If there's been research going on for 25 years, something must be right here. There must be some good thoughts done that we can use. And another sort of like the next step of life logging, but also another trend is big data. And why am I then showing a grainy picture of a supermarket? Well, just to give an example of what you can do with big data. I mean, big data is a buzzword too, but it's about collecting data and making analysis of that data and draw conclusions that you wouldn't be able to do without really large amount of data. So this is a supermarket, I think in Germany, where they, based on the data from their consumers, they could see what people buy, when and where and so on. And in normal supermarkets, you have like these aisles with coffee and diapers and pork, whatever. But they saw that on one specific day, on Saturday evenings, fathers of small children had like a consumer pattern that was very clear. Can you guess what that was? Beer is one thing. Another thing that fathers of small children buy? Diapers, exactly. So on Saturday evenings, they refurnished the store and put diapers and beer next to each other because they saw that this is what people would buy. And that's one thing you could do with big data. So we thought that live logging and this analysis of big data is something that you could combine in a consumer product. And that's why we started Memoto. So we started off early this year. This is going to be like showing pictures from your vacation, because this is all pictures from my cell phone this year. Not all of this, but most of it. So bear with me if you feel that kind of pictures are boring, vacation pictures. But this is one of the first workshops we had when we started testing what would such a camera look like. How could we design it to be not only wearable in itself, in the size, but also in the feel of it. So you don't feel like you're spying on your friends or walking around with a very conscious camera. This here is our designer from People Design Bureau, showing off some early sketches and the very first 3D printed version. This was not what we ended up with, as you see. But it was one way of thinking of it, to make it look more like a retro thing, more than some sci-fi gadget. And based on these prototypes and the early research we did ourselves, some market research, we were able to get some fundings. Here's me and our CEO, Martin Källström, just signed the papers for that. And we're also able to start marketing, which might seem kind of odd. We start market something that we are months from producing. At this day, we still not produced any real samples. The thing that's passing around here is, as you know, just a case. So we expect that we will start shipping in March, and this is March this year. So a full year before we started marketing. Because we thought that we could try and build a community around this consumer live logging thought that we had. And we also, because of the funding we had, there was some money to spend on it. And some of that money went to House Radon, who made this vision film for us. See if we can hear some behind the scenes of that. Not much to listen to, but so we quickly shot this video just to show what we wanted to say with Memoto. It doesn't really tell from these pictures, but what we want to say was that every moment of your life is worth keeping and worth remembering, and maybe also worth sharing. But the only way to do that is to have a camera that you can capture everything you experience. So we started blogging about this on our own blog. Still had no office, so I spent a lot of time in coffee shops writing these blogs, where we tried to gather this the already existing community of live loggers that were around. Steve Mann and his pals, basically. People that already started using similar kind of gadgets and services. Because there are, as you know, iPhone apps like Runkeeper. You could say that that's one kind of live logging service where you track your run and you can see where you've gone and how fast, and you can compare different runs with each other. So there's lots of people using these services without really seeing themselves as life vloggers, and we wanted to gather that crowd and give them a place to hang out on, basically. Another way we did that was scheduling this is, I don't know what this shows. This is the planning for our documentary about life vlogging. So we sent out to young film students, Ville and Amanda, on a round-the-world trip to meet with all these life vlogging researchers and startup founders of other life vlogging services and gadgets. Among others, Steve Mann, again, 4 years later or something, 3 years later, still wearing crazy stuff on his head. And that was a great trip, I think. I wasn't there myself, but so I've heard. They met with all these really pioneering people and got them thinking about Memoto as a brand and as a product way before we, again, had no product. The film itself, we're right now post-production and will premiere in late January, hopefully. But even without the film itself, it turned out to be really worthwhile trip since we started building this community. So, and the design of the camera went on. We found that this square shape was probably the best way to go. Here's our camera engineer, or at least the chin of him. And we made this 3D renderings that we could start trying out with focus groups and so on. And again, continued building the community. Went to all these conferences. This is TechCrunch in San Francisco, and we went to Dublin and met another pioneering guy. Bad picture, but his name is Keithel Gurin, and he's also been doing research on this for the past 20 years, and more on the software side. Because what he found out was that it's not about capturing pictures that is the most difficult thing. You could basically just duct tape a camera on your chest and start taking pictures. It's making sense of all these pictures that is the big challenge. And that is a challenge that he's been working with for a decade, on how to analyze these pictures and how to organize them in a way that you can make any use of having lots of pictures. An analogy I like to draw myself on that matter is if you think about how we consumed music before, let's say back in the 70s, 80s, way before even CDs were around. People went to a shop and bought this very specific song, maybe just one song, a single, and then went home and put them in their stereo. I don't know if did it have stereos in the 60s? I don't know. And listen to it and that's a good song, and then put it back in the shelf and took it out very rare occasions. And then CDs came along and MP3 files, and we had this chaos on our computers with music files lying around, and a large quantity of music, but there was no use of having that quantity until MP3 players and iPods and Spotify came along, and suddenly we put more value in having lots of music than having owning this specific music file or song. Whereas with pictures, we, again, back in the 80s or way even before that, we had cameras with 24 very valuable little frames on it, and you took these 24 pictures and you reproduced them and you put them in your album and you took it out from your shelf and watch it alone. That's a nice picture, and back in the shelf again. And then we got these digital cameras, and again we have this chaos on our computers now with picture files instead of sound files, and no way of making use of them. And that's where we are right now, and just increasing with our mobile phones. We take pictures, always, and we have no way of consuming it in a way that feels comfortable and make make use of the amount of pictures. So that's what this kind of software that Ketil Görin has been researching on, and that we are trying to make as well. That's the goal of that is to do with pictures what MP3 players and Spotify download music. You create a value in the quantity instead of the single quality itself, or single file. That was kind of a sidetrack. I don't know if you follow me there. Anyhow, based on this community building that we did for a couple of months, and the development of the camera itself, we felt that we were ready to actually do some kind of early launch. We knew that we had at least 6 months left before we had a real product out, but we still wanted to get to market as quickly as possible. So we thought that starting a Kickstarter campaign and crowdfunding the production could be a good idea. Because also basically the money, we didn't have enough money to go to production. It was all spent on these videos. So we had to, basically. So we did another video just to spend the last money, where we filmed the prototypes we had and put it up on Kickstarter. And tried to get accepted there, to have Kickstarter as a crowdfunding platform. But Kickstarter is really, they don't let anyone in there, basically. You have to, especially if you're a hardware product, they have high demands on you, how you present that you will be able to actually finish off this product. Because they have a history of a lot of hardware products on Kickstarter failing to actually do what they promised. They are hugely successful in getting fundings, but once the campaign is over, they don't get to production, and there is no product, basically. And these new guidelines they introduced just when we were, basically filming, just when we were just about to launch. We learned that we couldn't launch. We hadn't enough material to show that we were able to actually finish this production. So they said to us, okay, you got to show us how your working prototype works, because you got to have a working prototype. And as you see, you touch this thing I'm passing around, it's not really working, it's just a piece of plastic. So this we learned like 5 days before we were supposed to launch. We had all these magazines and blogs in the US lined up for us that were going to write about us on the launch day, and we couldn't really say to them that, hey, sorry, there is no launch. We screwed up. So we were kind of nervous there a couple of days before, and also how do you show that the camera is working? Especially since our camera doesn't make any sounds, it just silently takes pictures. But we had our camera engineer was smart, so he made this little iPhone film of his board. And let's see, I don't understand how this shows it is taking pictures, but maybe you can see it. So this is the Memoto camera in action. Magic, eh? So thanks to this, we were actually accepted on time. Just like 3 days before the schedule launched, we were accepted to Kickstarter. Still very nervous though. This is the night before launch. A lot of nail biting, as you see. All of us are like sitting like this, except for me, back in the back, like, nervously tweeting to our PR agency, like, what is happening? Do we have anything tomorrow? And then we launched on October 23rd, and we had a really it was a shocking launch in many ways. A lot of media wrote about us the very first day. This was someone's screenshot from TechCrunch, Next Web, The Verge. People tweeting about us in a way that we were really, humble. And thanks to this media storm that started and the Twitter storm that followed, we reached our goal on Kickstarter. The goal was to get $50,000 to start production, and we expected to hopefully get that over the time of the Kickstarter period, which was 37 days for us. But we reached it in 5 hours, and look at us, how happy we are. So this is a part of the Memoto team, just when we learned that we had reached the goal. And yeah, so here's the graph of how the project went on. See, we had a really nice start, and then it sort of flattens and a little bump in the last days. And this we learned is practically what a Kickstarter project looks like. You have hopefully a good start where most of the fundings come in, and then it flattens out, and then a little shift in the top. So we could basically just have stopped like here. Wouldn't have made any difference, except for us getting the money a month earlier than we will now. And over this time, or basically because of these first days, and the amount of traffic coming in, and not only traffic, but people commenting and asking questions, and really good questions that we hadn't expected, and remarks on our service and our ideas that made us rethink how we should do the product. Because of this, we were overwhelmed with just supporting and answering questions. For the first 3 days, the whole team of 15 Memoto people just sat around and answering questions. So we had to bring in some extra people. Niklas Johansson, who's also here today, came in and saved our souls with supporting on these questions, and made it so that we actually made use of all this feedback that we got. Because it was fantastic feedback. It was because of this that we know much more now where we are and what our market looks like and the demand for our product, much more than we would have if we hadn't done a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding campaign. And people asking for new add-ons and new features on the camera and the app itself that we hadn't thought of ourselves. The most common request, of course, being a cat collar, since this is the internet. It's true. We had like a couple of requests per day. Like, why isn't it cat collar? How can you not think of this? So we'll probably do that someday. And yeah, we ended up at $550,000, or 11 times our initial goal. But again, I mean, it's nice to have this funding because now we can really go to production and we have some extra money to spend if or when the production fails and we need to save it. So that feels really comfortable and relieving that we can do this now. But we also, as I said, the feedback and the input we got was even more valuable. For instance, it enabled us to produce a 4th color of the camera. At first, we only had 3, gray, white, and orange. But on request, we also produced this black one, only for Kickstarter backers so far. And the app development also were what do you say, made faster because of the feedback. And we feel confident that we can produce other gadgets around it, like this Wi-Fi dock that we're working on right now, and we'll hopefully be able to release later next year. So you don't have to plug the camera into the computer, but can plug it in a Wi-Fi dock instead. These are, as you see, really early sketches. So where are we at now? We are at this stage. And this is the very first PCB cards for the Memoto camera. Actually working PCB, not sketchy working. And as I speak now, our engineers are putting this in the cases, and hopefully this weekend we will have the very first working prototypes that we can actually wear and try out and see what it feels like to use the Memoto camera, because none of us have done it so far. Yeah, and with this grainy picture, I'd like to end here. Happy, if you had any questions, please ask them now or later. I know I should have ended with a picture saying my name and Twitter nick and everything, but I forgot that. But you can, I'm quite easy to find. I was about to say, I'm Kalmaru at Twitter, and my email address is Oskar@memoto.com, so it's easy. And I would like to, I really love to talk with all of you, now or later on Twitter or whatever. Yeah, that's it.